Getting so damn long, my camera cutting it off. Um, although Monday did not used to be one of my favorite days of the week, it has quickly become my favorite day of the work week. Anyway, this is the closest thing I get to do as far as like a live show with it, where I get to interact with everybody since COVID, that good stuff. So, and I mean, let's be honest, any job where you get to go in on a Monday and drink mimosa is like. I love it. Steve, what's going on, man? Appreciate you. You said yes, it's coffee and I'm on my way to work. Steve, you always on your way to work, man. Arucard the Immortal. Mark Peterson. Monarch. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Matthew Krause, thank you very, very much. GTA. What's going on? What's going on? Who else we got? All right. So let's go ahead and get to our first question. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. All that good stuff. And we're going to get down to it. Zachary Tietchin. Thoughts on Greg Platt saying that the real election fraud came from Trump, but said Dems committed during the primaries. You should get him on to discuss. I'm actually thinking about reaching out to him about that because, like, to be frank, it's not true. It is so. Like, let me put it like this: like, is Trump himself engaging in some sort of election fraud directly? I'm not exactly sure, but can I say that he might be to some degree by vicariously benefiting from some election fraud being committed by Republicans? Yes, absolutely. Now, that does not then exonerate the Democratic Party, nor does it take into account any like collaborative evidence that the Democratic Party has coalesced over the last 4 years or so to ensure that they never have to deal with another Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, Donald Trump, AOC, whoever you want to say. Anyone that could even be perceived as an insurgent, they managed to, in my opinion, stomp out through various means. One of those means is by making sure that all the voting machines that are being used, all the electronic voting software that's being used is in one form or another controlled by the Democratic establishment. So yeah, you have situations where you delete the voter rolls, right? That's what we usually see Republicans engage in. Not that we don't see the Democrats do that as well during the primary, but the Republicans do it as well during the general, and that's not news. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Now, that would be believable in almost every other election year. However, in this particular election year, we saw Trump just blow people out the water, like the other Republican presidents, incumbents, I should say, out the water when it came to garnering the black vote and votes from other marginalized ethnic groups. Like, that doesn't happen because the number one way for Republicans to cheat is by kicking black people off of the voter rolls. So how did he increase across the board if the Republican Party was simultaneously kicking them off? It's highly likely that Trump was like, no, don't do it. They're going to do what they want to do at the end of the day because they're worried about their own offices. But it's highly likely that Trump was advocating for keeping those people on the voter rolls because he wanted to make a point about, he's been making this a point for like the last year or so, that he wanted to win the most black votes and set a record there. And to a large degree, he did, even with this, with everything going on. And so I don't agree with Greg here. Although I think Greg has done some fantastic work when it comes to interstate cross-checking some things. I think that a lot of his election integrity analysis is based on outdated history. We have new information, and when we have new information, that's when we should start reanalyzing and readjusting the narrative. And the narrative is, like, sometimes it's the Republicans who have control over everything. Other times it's the Democrats who have control over everything. And this time we're back to the Democrats, at least the Democratic establishment, having what I like to call substantive control. Because even though Trump is Trump, and the Republicans are the Republicans, and Democrats are Democrats. Even with the Democrats not having control of the White House, we know that they want most of the things, and they wanted most of the things that Trump implemented, right? Whether it be the tax breaks or the wars, constant feeding of the military-industrial complex. Effectively, they get to pretend like Trump is the one doing everything, but the Democrats want that in, like Operation Warp Speed with this vaccine. That's all. Democrats want that just as badly. And so we have to kind of remember who we're dealing with. And Greg was right. For a time, Democrats would cheat primarily in the primaries. And then the Republicans were a little bit better at cheating in the election, or in the general election. But the Republicans have been just as sloppy, just like we look in North Carolina with the ballot harvesting situation. The Republicans were the ones who got caught ballot harvesting in North Carolina against the Democrats, and they got their entire election overturned. Whereas with Democrats, if they get caught doing any type of fraud, then it's immediately, considered to be a conspiracy theory, and it's just not true, because our elections don't work like that, and blah 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 blah. So, but I appreciate that question. Like I said, I like Pulaski. I like a lot of the work he's done. But to be perfectly clear, like his message changes. His message changes based off of what election season we're in. The Democratic primary, then all of a sudden, we're not supposed to pay attention to the Republicans. We only pay attention to the Democrats. And then when the general election comes around, all of a sudden Democrats can't do any wrong, and it's only Republicans. And that's just the same type of, I don't want to say mealy mouth, but it's kind of what it is. It's like the mealy mouth capitulation that we've seen from Bernie Sanders and others, right? Let's pretend like the Democrats are innocent because Republicans are bad. Like, yeah, both of y'all are bad though. Like, so there's that. Yeah, I heard about CNN potentially being sold. What's going on with that? Like, is Jeff Bezos really about to buy it? Because if that's the case, then that's horrible. But I do think it probably speaks to the fact that, well, I think over the last 4 years, Fox News kind of crushed CNN and MSNBC. Whereas I think MSNBC was leading in primetime news for a while. And then because of they've been wrong about just about everything over the last 4 years. So I guess it only makes sense for them to not be doing well. It makes sense for people like CNN and MSNBC to not be doing well. Like they're like, it's kind of interesting to see MSNBC and CNN, because when they're about to introduce this crazy new show, right? It's like, we're gonna take Joyanne Reed and take her from the 5 o'clock spot and give her an 8 o'clock spot. Look at all this innovation that we got going on here. We're going to give the show a new name, too. It's going to be the exact same topics with the exact same person as 5 o'clock, but it's going to be, she's getting a new hairdo, right? New hairdo, and then we're going to call it a different name. Innovation. LEJJ, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. Trump could have easily won this if he didn't jump in front of bullets meant for Biden. Democrats were protesting Biden's policies, not Trump's. I abhor Biden. You know what? That's interesting. That's a very, very, very good way to put it. If you are against a lot of what Trump has done in immigration, it's because you are opposed to Biden's policies. If you are against the emboldening of the police state, then you are against Biden's policies. If you are against, the corrupt over surveillance and the spying that we've seen, and the, in my opinion, betrayal of American values that we have seen, it's because you are against the Patriot Act, which Biden wrote. If you are against the 94, like the Iraq War, wasn't Biden one of the architects of the Iraq War? One of the architects. And if Trump was smart, he would have run, like, even if so, I would say like this. Now, don't get it twisted, right? Like, rigging is real. There's only so much you can do with voting machines. But what happens is, and actually, I'll give it to Trump like this, right? He did have such a upswell of energy through his campaign that some of the inconsistencies, we'll just call them that for now, the inconsistencies that we have been seeing have been made more obvious because Trump has done all this. Like, he's breaking all kinds of records, but he's lost the race. So I'll give him that. But I agree, Ellie, like, it would be almost indisputable. Like, if you would have started saying like ACA is bad because of the mandate, so we're gonna I don't know what the hell you want to call it, bro. Call Medicare for all Trump care, slap your damn signature on it, and just give us Medicare for all like you were planning on doing. Like, Ellie is right, 100%. Trump had an opportunity to beat Biden, like, because the bad things that Trump has done. You know how easy it would have been for Trump to say, like, here's where I messed up, even though he doesn't like doing that. And he's like, look, these people told me that these were good people to have in my administration. I gave them every opportunity to prove to me that they were correct. However, they were just loyal to the cabal that we're trying to get out of DC, where we're trying to drain the swamp, and those are the swamp monsters. But we're trying to find the right people for the job this go around. You see, we fired this person, we fired this person, we fired this person. These are all people who have advocated for policies that Joe Biden is still running on, pushing through, foreign policy or domestic policy. That's what he should have done. Because you could easily, because what happens is, if you fire Bolton in the fashion that you did, it looks like you realize that it was a mistake ever hiring him. And people can forgive mistakes. They can't forgive, however, not acknowledging mistakes a lot of the times when you're in a situation like Trump. So I agree with you, Ellie. He should have ran on, like, y'all want 47, or y'all want another 4 years of the last 47 years? Because last time I checked, those weren't good. Thank you very much for that super chat, Ellie. Emblem Fate. As a fellow black, do you ever feel ashamed of the blind love our people share for the man who brought slavery back to Africa and his white companion? I'm assuming you're referring to Obama. And one of the reasons that I am so, like, obsessed with candidates' positions on foreign policy, like, there are domestic issues that, like, I'll give more passes on, because I understand domestic policy. Like, you can largely affect domestic policy by going to your local, your city council meetings, your, mayor meetings and all that good stuff, and city hall meetings, running for local office. You can do a lot if you wanted to, right? If people just got up off their ass and did. Foreign policy is a little bit different. The president almost has unilateral control over a lot of what happens overseas, between the president, secretary of state, and at times, depending on who the vice president is, the vice president. So in the case of Dick Cheney, Joe Biden, those were like foreign policy vice presidents. And when people like don't get it twisted, like, it was a proud moment for me when we saw what Obama was able to do. Not necessarily because it was Obama, it was because, okay, like, people forget it. Like, it isn't just the Obama effect. Like, it wasn't like Obama was, like, doing the Mayo Pete, right? That's not what was happening during those debates. That's not what was happening during his speeches. Obama was coming at Hillary, Biden, and the rest over Afghanistan and Iraq because he wasn't there for the Afghanistan vote, and he was openly against the Iraq war invasion because it was very easy to be that way. And he had been a humanitarian prior, like, that's what he was considered before being a legislator. He came in talking about over surveillance, and he was criticized the Patriot Act heavily. Even Gravel, famously said that he was most worried about Obama because Obama at the time really believed that he can change things. So he ran the campaign that a lot of black people felt like he should have ran. He talked about the issues that a lot of us felt like he should have talked about. He did it in the most charismatic way possible. And he took us for fools. And all that charisma, all that clout, all the love and adulation that he had gained, he used to do what? Bring slavery back to Africa? As the first, like, not just the first black president, bro. You're like which by the way, no one saw coming. The first black president actually being part of the African diaspora. Like, but it happened. So you're the first black president. You're from Southside Chicago, supposedly. And you're African. To boot. And the first thing that, like, the most notable thing I can think of that you did was bring slavery back to Africa. And to see people just kind of like shrug this off, it kind of goes back to the age-old dilemma that we have within the black community. I'm sure a lot of you seen Black Panther that actually talks a lot about that. But the black community here, they don't have a connection with Africans. They feel like they've been, especially the older black community, they feel kind of like kind of shrugged off by Africans. And then of course, Africans feel like the black African American community in the States has been too Americanized, too westernized, and to a large degree, too culturally bastardized. And so now you have Obama able to get away with what he did in, not just, by the way, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, installing the president of Chad to funnel those terrorist groups into Libya in order to have a reason to go after Gaddafi. Like, it's heartbreaking. It really is. And that's why I tell, you know, I joke with my mom about it, but like, she knows I'm serious. Like, you don't want that. It's weird because obviously, like, I thought, like, I endorsed Obama. Like, it's not like he was my friend. I didn't know that man. I didn't know him like that. Like, I've never met him. Never. At least I don't think so. Oh no, I did meet him once. I met him when I was in the army. But I remember because he came to Fort Bragg actually, and he played basketball with some of the soldiers. But I remember Joe Biden tried to come up and talk to us. We were like, sorry, sir, I didn't come to this Batman movie to see Robin. To the left. Nah. I really did say that shit to him, though. I was kind of an asshole soldier. But I was not trying to see no Joe Biden. A little creepy. He gave me the creeps back then. But yeah, it's just very unfortunate. Like I said, I didn't endorse him or anything like that. Like, not with the platform. I voted for him once in 2008, and that was it. When I went back to vote for him again in 2012, like, I just kind of like recapped the last 4 years of my life, and just as a soldier, even, right? They kept sending us to all these wars and shit. They promised to end Afghanistan. They promised to end Iraq. My unit was one. Some of them were deploying to Afghanistan. The other half were deploying to Iraq still. We never got a raise, right? Like, retirees weren't really being taken care of to the degree I thought they should have. Just from my position in life at that point, like where I just got out the military, I just didn't feel like Obama had done a good job just from that perspective. Like, you're going to continue the wars. You're not bailing out. My mom is still struggling. Like, that's when my mom had gotten diabetes. So I'm really, really seeing the ugly underbelly of the healthcare system. If they want to call it healthcare system, it's more like this. Sick care? Is that what they call it? Yeah. Among some other things that I had to, like, me and my brother had to come up with a lot of cash out of pocket to take, because my mom had really kind of foregone healthcare her entire life because it was so expensive. And so, you know, as you get older, not that she was really old back then, she was only 40, something like that. But yeah, my mom's young. Love it, actually. It's pretty cool. But it was, I saw all of it. You got to see all of it. And I was like, nah, I'm not voting for the dude again. But as a black man, we all know how the game goes. Like, it's the same thing for really any person of color, but for black men especially, they really, really try to hit you with the, oh, one messed it up, Told y'all, we gave y'all an opportunity. Look what happened. Like, that's why a lot of people, like, we take it personally when we see people like Cory Booker and Barack Obama and, you know, Dr. Jason Johnson and Benjamin Dixon's. Like, we hate seeing them take opportunities that people work very, very hard to get them. You know what I'm saying? Not directly, obviously, but like throughout years of struggle for equity, and then they squander them. They do exactly what the white establishment, a white man in that position, would do, except for they get the black people to go along with it also. It's very frustrating. I guess we can say that we've achieved some type of equity, though, right? Because now you're going to have it where Africans and African Americans and sometimes Jamaicans and Indians, Southeast Asians can all commit the same war crimes and all get away with it just like a white man could. That's some progress right there. Natalie, what's going on? Thank you very, very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Robert M. Lawrence, thank you very much for the super chat. Have you read The Future Is Up to Us by Nelson Peary? I would recommend it. Peary was ahead of his time predicting things. I have not. I will check it out, though. I have like a list of books I have to read. It's been very difficult to keep up with all that given where we're at right now in politics, but I do have a list. I actually need Spanish political books because I need to stop BSing and become fluent in Spanish again soon. It's really to nobody else's fault but my own. I have zero reason to not be fluent in Spanish. So plus, you know, it would be nice to communicate with my mother-in-law in something other than broken English. Me and my mother-in-law basically speak Spanglish to each other. But she can type it out really well, actually. She can type out English. Whenever we have to communicate, we just like, hold on, I'm gonna call you back. And we text each other. I text her in Spanish and she responds back in English. Glory, read some Fidel. You know what? That's actually a really good idea, Glory. It's just so funny. Like, I was like, read something. Who the hell saying? Of course, it's Glory. It's Glory saying that. Of course. Nelson Peary. Let me check that out. Emblem Fate. What can we do to get us to embrace our African roots? Woo! Man. That is first of all, let me real quick, Natalie, let me just say that I'm gonna guess that you are Mexican. I know where you live at, but I'm just gonna guess because you spell, I mean, like my in-laws family. Yo, texting them is not fun. It's not. It really. Cause I'm texting them words like they don't even know, like at least based off of how it's spelled, because it's spelled correctly and they didn't finish school. So like, I'm like, that's not how you spell that. They're like, what, for real? Be confusing me. But anyway, what can we do to get us to embrace our African roots? Man, it's difficult. It's difficult. I think that it's a multi-pronged approach that would require just a better understanding of history from both sides, I think. Obviously, Africa probably has a little bit more accurate history than we have, but I think that Africans have also been largely misled on what's taking place in the States. They think a lot of what's taking place with black people is because of our own doing. Right? It's that pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Because you have like the Africans will come over here, the ones who have the privilege there, the financial privilege to do so, and they're successful. And they're like, what? My kids were successful. I don't like. It was always this joke back in the day. So I lived in the South for pretty much majority of middle school and high school, and Africans One thing they do is they come, they play soccer. If the African landed in your school, they come, they play soccer. They're gonna be one of the best, and they get straight A's, and they go to either Duke, or UNC, or Harvard. This is like how it all. Funny enough, one of my friends' name was Osagi Obomer. Excuse me. No, Oboner. Osagi Oboner. Another one of my friends was named Justice. His name was Justice Amazurike. He had to change his last name because nobody would get the name right. And both of them from different walks of life. Like, they both came from pretty privileged African backgrounds. But Justice was actually like a prince of a tribe. And his family, the names for his family, his brothers were like, it was like Justice, Freedom, and Prince. I think there was one more. And they all played soccer. Justice actually did wrestling too, because he ended up being 300 pounds of straight muscle. And he's a doctor now. I think he went to Duke Medical School. He's a doctor now. Osagi, I think, became a doctor. He played soccer also. Whenever we would play soccer, like at UNC, you know, you got your club teams. We would play soccer. It was me. And then the other two black guys were African. Yeah, basically. So that's basically it, man. Like, but like, so when they come here, like it's like they have a blueprint of what other Africans from the motherland have done to fit in. It's kind of like the Baptist. Like, I always call it I always say there's like a competition to see if you can be whiter than a white man. Like, when it goes back to homophobia within the black community. Why are black people homophobic? Like, why would they discriminate against another person based off of something they can't control? Why? Because, like, you can't stand out by being more open-minded. That's like, you gotta ingratiate yourself with the patriarchy, right? So you got to be as bigoted as they are at times. Had to be more Christian. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Southern Baptists get the Holy Ghost in the white church. Yeah, they go off, but they ain't going off like no Southern Baptists in the black church. White people think they can have a mega church until a black person comes up with the idea to have a mega church, and it's going to look like a damn Drake concert in there. Okay? That's how it is. White people like guns. Black people really like guns. In all seriousness, this is like, it's kind of like one of those things. And this African community is not any different, but they come here with a different type of privilege. The same privilege that a lot of foreigners come here with. And so I think that it's going to take just re-education and understanding how the other side came to their mindset regarding the other side. And then once we kind of mend the bridge there, but it's going to take, like I said, it's going to take some very popular and cultured Africans who are willing to reach out to the black community here. And then it's going to take some cultured black Americans to be willing to get outside of their box. You got to remember, man, like, black people, bro, like, I remember in high school and in college, people were talking about like traveling out the country, like, for their summer vacation and shit. And I was like, yo, why do people talk about this like it's casual? Like, that was not a thing. My first time going out the country that I can remember was only a couple years ago. That I can remember. And I could have gone out the country. Speaking of languages, that I could definitely go out the country and be fine in plenty of places in South America and Central America and in Asia. But it's just, you don't think about it. That's not what we think about doing. Like, a extravagant trip for me was going to Myrtle Beach, like 2 hours away. Like, that was a big deal for us. So you got to also think about that as being part of the issue too. Is like, black people just not used to going outside of our comfort zone, bro. My uncle still will not leave the Bronx. My uncle is a contractor with multiple degrees in computer science and in information systems technology and construction. He can literally build a building by himself from the ground up. He could probably be very wealthy if he would just leave the Bronx. All of his kids have left. He still hasn't left. Because that's how black people can be sometimes. Especially from the city. But no pressure. I know you're trying to ask me to solve the entire diaspora dilemma. No pressure, though. I appreciate it. Agent 77, thank you very much for the super chat. How do you think the 2024 primaries will go on the Republican and Democrat side? Since Biden may only serve one term. I think it'll go exactly how I think that the House is going to lose more seats. At the end of the day. Now here's the scenario where they may not work. Okay, the House has to be smart. The progressive Democrats have to win the policy arguments in the court of public opinion. That's what they have to do. They have to make it loud. They have to call Nancy Pelosi. Then Biden has to actually echo the sentiments of the progressives in the House, which he will not do, but I'm just saying this is what he should do. And the Democrats to even make it look like, oh man, look at us, we're conceding. Yeah, you're right, AOC and Elon and whoever, like we definitely should do this. Oh God, they're not really gonna do anything, but I'm just saying strategic purposes. Then once they concede and the Republicans are like, no, we're gonna stand our ground here because only there's a few, they still have the Senate by like maybe what, 2 or 3 senators. So what if the Republicans get into this standoff with the Democrats and obviously the House, and then with Biden in the White House, then the Democrats can blame the Republicans for everything not getting done. Just introduce Medicare for all if you're a Democrat. Save your career. Make it look like the Democrats are actually substantively different than the Republicans. Like, try to end wars. Do things that you know the Republicans are not going to sign off on because their donors won't allow them to. Then what happens? Who knows? Maybe the Republicans to make sure that they can maintain power actually have to kowtow to the Democrats. Maybe, who knows? And maybe we accidentally get good policy signed because everybody calling everybody's bluff. That would be nice, right? But if the Republicans did not give the Democrats any of those good policies and the Democrats made a big deal about it, then we might see the Republicans get replaced. But I'm not sure how I feel about having a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic executive branch. I don't want to give Kamala all that power, to be honest with you. Not when the progressive Democrats haven't really been all that good about fighting for anything. But it's hard to predict, man. It's hard to predict what'll happen because we just really don't know what everything's gonna look like by the time it's all said and done with this Trump phenomena. I don't think we're done. I think we might see something worse. Sorry, I just had to share this one more time. Thank you very much, people. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share it. Appreciate all the wonderful questions. Y'all got your questions locked and loaded today. Y'all asking me some heavy questions, yo. LJJ. Largest pyramid in the world is located in Mexico. Most of us were already here. Oh, I didn't know the largest pyramid in the world ended up being in Mexico. So you think that there was some Africans that migrated to Mexico too? I thought the indigenous built the pyramids in Mexico, but it's quite possible that, I mean, it's probably a combination of both, to be real. I'm supposed to be going to Mexico soon. I feel like basically, other than the basketball team, I'm gonna be like the second tallest person there. If my brother goes too. Otis B, thank you very much for the super chat. Ghana has extended an open offer for us to move there. The divide was manufactured through propaganda for the most part. I think it depends. Well, so first of all, Otis, I am tracking about Ghana. I heard about that. I've been looking because I plan on going to Ghana. I was going to go this year. Obviously, COVID ruined all of those plans. But yeah, I know that Ghana was doing the year of return, and Ghana has, for the most part, to my understanding, has been welcoming the diaspora with open arms. However, not every country is like that, And to be frank, I can understand why every country wouldn't want American interests of any kind to be like. Think about it. If you don't see a lot of black people, like black Americans, as an African person, all you see are people like Obama, people like Cory Booker, Kamala, people who take advantage of the black struggle for their personal gain, and then they exploit black people specifically of all kinds. It doesn't really matter. They exploit them in the States. They exploit them in Central and South America. They exploit them in Africa. They exploit them in Europe and in the Middle East. Like, and so that's your idea of what a black person with any type of influence or network would be like. I wouldn't want them coming to my country either. Right? I think it's a pretty fair assumption that like the Africans have earned every right to look out for themselves. OZ Whistles. Caught your chat. Appreciate the question. What's your reading on the streets in the USA, Niko? Like, how are real people surviving? Man, that's a loaded question. So it depends. It depends. I mean, it's funny because I always say like it's for black people, like this is for people who have gone through it, poor people who have gone through it, like this is kind of like not all that crazy for us. Like you finessing is a way of life, right? Finessing, like having to deal with the corrupt system. You are constantly anticipating being one paycheck away from somebody screwing you over. And so you always have backup plans on backup plans on backup plans, right? So that's just how it goes. Out here in Miami, people, there's a food truck or food bank right down the street from my house. It's been awesome to see that they've been consistently putting people up. A lot of businesses have been hiring more people out here. That's been interesting to see. Not gonna lie, I kind of thought that people would slow down, but it turns out it's been the opposite. People have actually hired more people. You know, and then you can, if you get hired to a place, even if it's part-time, you can collect unemployment and collect your check to balance it out. So that's good. But other than that, man, I've just seen people just kind of pulling together and relying on friends and family. That's how we were fortunate enough to get through all of this relatively unscathed. That's how my family has been able to get through all. My brother's in the military, so it's a little bit different. But you know, he had to deal with his not necessarily because of his job, but like because he's in the military, his son's not in school, and then his stepdaughter not in school, and you know his fiance. Like it's a headache in and of itself. Like I feel bad for the people who have kids. Don't ask me how they're surviving because I don't know. I don't know. People getting their unemployment played with by their governors because of, you know, politics, basically. That's what happened in California. But people are just hustling, doing whatever they can, getting Uber Eats, getting Lyft, hopping on Postmates and driving, getting part-time jobs, bringing the college students back home. Have them go to work. I mean, some of the same stuff you saw. It's crazy because I kind of forgot about it. I guess because it feels like it was so long ago, even though it hasn't been that long ago. But I remember distinctly, 2008, 2009, 2010, and 2011, people were coming back home from college because, like, they had to come back to work because their parents were going to lose their homes otherwise. So, and I think that we're going to start. I think we've already really started seeing that. How are y'all doing? How are y'all holding up? Emblem Fate left the pro movement. They are serious on winning. I want to work with empowering our black people. Don't have time to mess with people who love to lose. Well, I'll tell you this. I don't want to. You said left the pro movement. What's the pro movement? I'm assuming you're talking about pro reparations. But I will say that I'm not working with. I'm not down to work with people who are not about winning. Like, I hate not winning. People have no idea how much I am a very, very sore loser. And if, like, how's the phrase go? How does the saying go? Find me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. Is that how it goes? You said you're hanging in there, OZ Whistles. Struggle. Wish I could. Oh, I could wish to be young. I will say that there is an inherent advantage nowadays, technologically speaking, even with getting jobs, with being young. I feel like that maybe has always kind of been the case, but definitely now. Definitely now. Oh, the progressive movement. Yeah, the progressive movement definitely seems to be addicted to losing. The populist movement, they like winning. They do like winning. And like, the populist right kind of gets their victories whenever they can get them, you know. The populist left, well, we are constantly having to engage with the bullshit of the progressives movement. Even though I consider myself a progressive, I'm obviously probably not considered to be part of the movement because their movement, for whatever reason, entails no consistency whatsoever. I have no idea what the progressive movement is anymore. So I see somebody shout out the Convo Couch. Absolutely. Convo Couch. Shout out to the Convo family. Stephanie said that she's been working throughout the whole pandemic. You're blessed. I hope it's treated you the same, if not better. You know, I've been working throughout the whole pandemic because it's my job. But you know, there's been ups and downs. We've been, you know, I've been definitely blessed. I've had my health. The most I got sick was when I went to DC. I had a little cold for a day because it was cold. It wasn't really cold. It was like DC cold. You know, for me, it was cold in comparison to what I was used to dealing with. Like, it was 65 degrees. But for me, that might as well be 40 degrees. I don't do 65. Y'all know this. So that's why I got sick. But, you know, we've had our health. You know, family's been doing well. You know, my brother has done well, just because, like I said, he's in the military. My mom has been very, very blessed and fortunate, although she had to cancel some of her vacations. My mom, she deserves all the vacations in the world, you know. So it does break my heart. Like, she finally got like the courage to go out the country, and then like one of her vacations got canceled, and like it was like a big deal because she doesn't do out the country. But she did. She ended up going back recently, and so that was good. She'd been saving up for years and doing her thing, and after all this nonsense that my brother and I put her through, even though she's spoiled, but you know, me and my brother were headaches. All my siblings were headaches, actually, but especially me and my brother. But you know, we've been very, very fortunate to have our health. You know, my grandma, my wife, my brother, and my nieces and nephews. I did find out I had a new sister. Well, not a new sister. I found out I had a sister. That was cool. She was just like us, as expected. Wallace West. What are your thoughts on Marxism? Ooh. Damn. Wallace West, man. Wallace West always comes in and he gets his money worth. Wallace West will hit you with a $2 like question of the night. Thank you very much for that super chat, Wallace. I appreciate it. He's always here in the mornings. I love all my morning crowds. So, what are my thoughts on Marxism? Depends. What are we talking about? Are we talking about Marxism, like the actual Marxism, or the cultural Marxism that the conservatives be talking about? Cultural Marxism, whatever the fuck that is. It's funny because I don't think they understand what cultural Marxism would be. But are we talking about like the Richard Wolff version of Marxism? Is that where we're gonna go with, Wallace? I want to make sure I answer your question correctly. Hey Stephanie, I'm glad my mom got to travel too. She needed it. I'm gonna go with the Richard Wolff version. Well, I'll talk about both, I guess. Well, no, actually, you know what? I'll talk about Marxism. I'm gonna talk about Marxism from my personal perspective. Now, a lot of people have asked me, why do I not call myself or consider myself to be a Marxist or a socialist by Marxist standards? You said the super chat's not working well. I don't know what to do about that. Can my moderators look into that, please? Appreciate you. Let me know what y'all figure out. But so there's Marxism, like the actual Marxism. There's the conservative version of Marxism, which is really not even, I don't know what the hell. They keep talking about this cultural Marxism thing, which is not a thing. I'm gonna explain to you why it's not a thing. And then there's Marxism, in my estimation, what I believe is the reality of Marxism and why it actually poses a lot of problems to the leftist movements. Now, Marxism economically, in a vacuum of a homogeneous community, is for the most part brilliant. Now, I do believe that you have to bring in somewhat of a mixed economy, and that mixed economy is going to be dependent on what resources you have available to your country, right? So America, we can have a pretty closed-in economy if we chose to. Like, we don't have to be as globalist as we are. We have, like, even if you didn't want to give up oil, we have plenty of oil. So much that we basically use mostly our oil, and we export majority of the oil in the world now. We have agriculture. Like, sugarcane is a big thing. We have that. Like, only other person that produces as much as we can is Brazil. We have wheat, tobacco, cotton, hemp, all that good stuff. So we can have a socialist economy, probably more socialist in other countries, and be perfectly fine. But with that being said, there is an aspect to socialism that never really gets discussed. And very specifically, there's an aspect of Marxism that never gets discussed. Which is the fact that, have y'all noticed a little trend online? Have you noticed a little trend? Who are the people who call themselves socialists, primarily? Like the ones who end up becoming very, very, very popular. Mostly a bunch of, I hate saying basement dwelling white guys, but I mean, for the most part, they're basement dwelling white guys. Like, they don't understand what it is like. It's interesting, right? Basically, Marxism has become home of the bourgeoisie rather than the proletariat, even though Marxism obviously is supposed to favor the proletariat. The fact that you can see there is a clear, for whatever reason, like the ones who dominate the Marxism conversation are generally privileged white people. And they're also, a lot of the times, like racist, or at the very least, they're apathetic to the intersectionality that has to be considered when it comes to racism and the economy, or race and the economy. They're apathetic. And why? Because a lot of them, they bring in their own inherent biases. They're not speaking from a point of equity, of opportunity. They're speaking from a point of white saviorism. Oh, I'm gonna bring socialism, and I know that if I can be perceived as a good guy because I'm a bourgeoisie, rich person, upper middle class that wants to redistribute wealth, quote unquote, and help out those poor, marginalized people. But they're not actually doing it because they want equity. They're just doing it because, well, they get a lot of money for pretending to care. But also, if you read Marxism word for word, or excuse me, not Marxism, but if you read Marx's words, like if you read the Communist Manifesto, if you read Marxism, like just socialist conversations, like from Marx, then you notice there's one key aspect missing, and that's, once again, how race in the economy has to go hand in hand when we're talking about true economic empowerment for the poor people of any country, especially America, Central South America, Africa, like South Africa and shit like that. Really Asia, a lot of countries in Asia, they have like racial breakdowns and cultural breakdowns where race is a factor. So it makes sense that for whatever reason, you see like a bunch of white people who just love Marxism, but will call themselves anarcho-Bidenists. Will tell you in the same breath to vote for Joe Biden. But like, nah, I'm a socialist though. Because, to be frank, the policies that Biden pushed that specifically hurt black people or people of color, Marxism doesn't actually touch any of that stuff. There's nothing for them to latch on to. There's no preconceived ideology in Marxism, like within the teachings of Marx, that says this is how we should deal with issues of race in the economy. No, at all. Because Marx was racist. There's that. Marx was racist, bro. He was also anti-Semitic as hell, but he was racist too. Marx himself was racist. And so, obviously, do I think that, like, there are people who built upon Marx's ideas, right? So Black Panthers, Fidel Castro, Nelson Mandela, I would say Maurice Bishop before he was assassinated. Like, there are people who took the basic economic ideals of Marx and implemented them intersectionally with, like, race issues. But, like, the bread and butter of Marxism has nothing to do with race. And in fact, I would make an argument that Marx himself goes out of his way to avoid discussing it with any substantive, like, solutions. Like, he's not going to, for what? Didn't like black people. So once you, like, so when you process that from like a pragmatic perspective, like, just like, because you asked me, the reason I don't consider myself a Marxist is because the core of Marxism is missing, in at least in the States, and for a black man who lives in the States, is missing a massive chunk of information, of informational consideration, I should say, that should be largely guiding. Because if you understand how black people are abused and used by the patriarchy and the economic patriarchy and capitalism, then you understand how women are. It looks different, but it's a very similar thing. Then how poor white people. It looks different depending on the region, but eventually it looks the same. And if his teachings would be much more effective, in my opinion, it, like, Marxism and socialism has now become a little bit more popular amongst the black community again, especially amongst younger black people in academia. But, like, Marxism doesn't really have, like, yeah, the Black Panthers consider themselves a communist, like, affiliate, like, but they don't call themselves Marxists. They don't believe, I'm not gonna say they don't believe in Marxism, but they are their own special type of communism. But like when you're trying to preach to the new generation about Marxism, there's no connection there because Marx himself did not make that connection because he didn't like black people. Why would he make the connection? So then, of course, that makes the idea of socialism in and of itself harder to sell to the black community, to the black community that isn't part of the academic community or like hardcore into politics. So they, you know, they just have no. I just feel like Marxism. Like, I'm not going to be a Marxist. I believe in some of his teachings. I think like just from economic principles, like that standpoint, it's easy to see why Marx is adored as far as the economy and things like that are concerned, and to make sure that the working class are squared away there. But like at the same time, that wasn't for us that he did that for. It's just like FDR. FDR might have been great for white people, but he didn't do shit for us. He was the opposite for us, actually. He was horrible for us. Ellie JJ, thank you very much. I need to make Ellie a moderator. Ellie, you're a moderator now. You always here. Pop Reality, thank you very much for the super chat. Jank Uger is okay with incremental change, even if it literally means no change for black people. That's why Biden was acceptable for him. I mean, you want me to add on to that? Because that was perfectly stated. That was perfectly stated. I don't know how's that. Yeah, you right, bro. Appreciate the super chat, Pop. Jerry Lynn Snoop. What about the nationalization of the banking system? Or nationalizing the bank? What do you mean? I feel like we already have a nationalized. You mean like a public banking system? Is that what you mean? Because I do agree that we should have a public banking system. I do agree with that. That way they can't just gamble. I mean, a lot of our recessions come from the banking community, so. But I agree. Wallace West said TYT is racist unconsciously. I think some of their racism is very conscious. Some of it. But nah, you're correct though. TYT, they got some issues. Their whole little clique. Emma still is obsessed with Tulsi, bro. Like it's getting kind of creepy. What did she say? Let me see if I can find that tweet. I'm gonna find it because Emma's weird. It was just really, really weird. Oh, here we go. I found it. I'll pull this up for y'all. So this is Emma. So this random congressperson from Georgia was working out in her hotel room, saying some stupid nonsense. So Emma says this: Tulsi stands. I've found your new leader. What? She's just working out. What am I supposed to? Yay, she works out? I don't understand. What are we? Is that why we? Is everybody support Tulsi because she works out a lot? I'm confused. That was such a weird thing to say. Like, I don't even know how to respond to that. What is wrong with you? What's weird about that is like, it's almost as if Emma really has not read a single policy that Tulsi introduced. Like, at all. It's like, it could, so people can't like her because, like, she introduced the best climate change legislation in history, that she reintroduced Fairness in Media Act, that she tried to end the war in Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq multiple times over the course of the last 3 years through legislation. Can't be for any of that stuff. Can't be for the fact that she stood up for Bernie when Bernie wouldn't even stand up for himself. Couldn't be for the fact that, as far as other presidential candidates are concerned, basically it was only her, Andrew Yang, and at times Marianne Williamson who was unafraid to speak to the independent media. Couldn't be for the fact that she was actually about to come up with one of the best healthcare legislations in the history of the country, just like for climate change. And I know because I saw parts of it. She was actually going to set up an immigration initiative that would have helped to deal with the doctors and nurse shortage problems that Bernie's legislation didn't deal with and nobody ever really discussed. So she was going to help to deal with the immigration problem, college debt, and healthcare at the same damn time. Couldn't be for any of that stuff. It had to be because she works out in the morning. Damn, I don't know if you know this. I spent a lot of time avoiding them workouts with Tulsi. I got asthma. I ain't trying to deal with it. And I still supported much of the policies that she put forth, despite not really liking her workout regimen all that much. Them little workouts she be doing, I'm not trying to chill with that. Not at all. But this is weird to me. Like, Tulsi's on the way out, bro. What are you doing? What is it that you like? Why are you obsessed with her? It's weird, bro. I don't know what else to say. It's weird. Oh yeah, there you go. I forgot. Election integrity too. Tulsi's the best on election integrity, to the point where the House introduced a fake bill titled the exact same thing as Tulsi's, just so people wouldn't pay attention to Tulsi's bill, but instead they paid attention to this BS securing America's Federal Elections Act. That was just a bunch of pork barrel to Democratic politicians. And it would have gave a monopoly of the voting machines to some American corporation. That's it. That's all it would have did. But it couldn't be for... And look at what we're dealing with right now. Elections issues. Election integrity issues. Biden's about to go back into Afghanistan, escalating tensions with Iraq, Russia, and the Ukraine. Or Iran, Russia, and the Ukraine, excuse me. And Emma's worried about Tulsi being work. Maybe you should work out. You know, get the blood pumping. You know, when they say when you get the blood pumping, you get some oxygen flowing to your brain. Because clearly your brain needs all the oxygen it can get, Emma. Because it's getting ridiculous. I hate jumping to conclusions and assuming that when a woman bashes another woman, it's out of jealousy. But Emma, there are literally no other options left. It couldn't be for policy. She's not running against Bernie anymore. Where is your dedication to attacking Elizabeth Warren with all this resolve? I'm confused. Isn't she the one that like took 20% of votes away from Bernie? Or once again, is it because you're really just revealing what your actual intentions were? It was never about making sure Bernie won, even. It was never about getting progressive policies pushed through. It's about stepping on the toes of a person who is interfering with your grift. And the TYT grift, as everybody saw, was push Bernie but accept Warren. Because either way, we think we can get into the White House. Come on, bro. That's so sad. That's just so sad. I don't know what else to say anymore. I don't know, like, now you mad at Tulsi for working out? Is that what we're down to now? Look, I found the Tulsi's next candidate, like, because she works out. So now we attacking people for working out? That's Tulsi messed up by working out too, bro. Okay. You're weird. It's getting weird. Stop it, Emma. For the love of God, it's embarrassing at this point. Tulsi does not think about you. at all. I can almost guarantee it. When she goes off and gets done with Congress, she'll go on to do many more amazing things that I know that you wish you probably could do. She'll go on to get the love and adoration that she deserves for doing the amazing things that she will continue to do. And you'll continue being a lackey for TYT until people realize that you have no idea what journalism really is. And you can't just attack Trump and kiss Warren's ass and kiss Bernie's ass anymore. And Tulsi will still be out there doing great things, living her best life. And also with the toll cells, knowing that we didn't vote for a warmongering sociopath like Joe Biden. I don't know what to tell you, man. She's weird. Pop reality. Want Bree Gray to run? She's lit. I think Bree is good right where she's at in media right now. We need more honest people in media. Bree's great. You know, Bree does a lot of great work. Being willing to challenge. What's that boy's name? Who the old man that the liberals always run to in elections? Every time the elections come around, they go to him. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I can't remember his name right now. But when she challenged him, the manufacturing consent guy, good God almighty. Noam, sweet baby Jesus, Noam Chomsky. You know I'm not good with names. But Noam Chomsky, but for her to challenge him like that, bring him on to her show, which gets a lot of reach, and just really put pause on him. I was impressed. Love when Bree goes to work. When Bree is unleashed, it really, I mean, with Bree and Jimmy, Fiorella and Pasta, you know, Harlan's in the crew, Kim Iverson also, Graham and Ron, whenever they get unleashed, I love it because you really see them hit another level. You always see that. And I love when Bree is hit, in my opinion, another level, and she's continuing to ascend because she obviously was a writer she was primarily a writer. And now that she's crossed over into the podcasting world permanently, I think it's going to be great for independent media. I think we need that. We need somebody with that type of voice in her position in media right now, because without media we're not gonna win anything. We can't. Like you need to win the court of public opinion also, and Bree helps us there. So I would like to see her kind of expand her role in the media world first. Start, you know, be that standard bearer, especially because like we already don't have enough black women in media as it is. So I don't want to see her off to the races the moment that we finally have a prominent black woman in the independent media world. Ryan Grimm and Jenks to take responsibility for the snake. Oh man. Yeah, they both need to eat that. They need to eat that. Ryan Grimm, Jank. Who else? Ryan Grimm, Jank, David Sirota, AOC. Oh yeah, a whole lot of AOC. Ilhan Omar, Ro Khanna. I'm just going off names off the top of my head. I don't think Jeff Weaver. I mean, he has a lot of other things to answer for, but I don't think that was one of them. Oh, Chuck Rocha. All of them. They got to eat all that. Katie Halper has a good show. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. I don't think I did. Talk about Jimmy Dore interviewing Roe. Oh yeah, I saw the interview. Man, Jimmy, it's funny. So it's interesting because obviously I have a lot of problems with Ro Khanna, like a lot of them. I think he is mostly a careerist. I call him the first progressive careerist. What does that mean? It means that some things will get Ro. We'll get Ro on our side. But be ready for the letdown. So never let him be the north of your moral compass, because he's not the true north of a moral compass in politics. He'll vote for Medicare for all, but then he'll also, of course, vote for like Medicare for America, right? He'll vote for the CARES Act, but he also introduced legislation to get a UBI too, although he didn't support Tulsi's legislation to get a UBI through, right? So there's that. He'll claim to support things like he introduced legislation to not go to war with Iran, but didn't support the No More Presidential Wars Act, which would have made every situation similar to Iran. It would have made all the presidents, Trump and all future presidents, accountable for anything like what we've seen with Iran or Venezuela. And yeah, he didn't support that. So like, I have my problems with Ro, but I will give him this: he does not run away from independent media. If we've ever asked him questions on Twitter publicly, he's responded or he's DM'd us. A lot of times we don't like his response, so we respond accordingly. Whenever Jimmy has a problem with something he's done, Jimmy calls him on the show. Ro always answers, and Ro goes on the show and he takes his licks. And in fact, because of the way that Jimmy interviews Ro, which is the way that all politicians should really be interviewed when you're in positions of power and you do bad things, even if it's a mistake. But because of the way that Jimmy interviews Ro, that's why politicians, especially progressives, are afraid to go on the show. Don't get it twisted. Ro is a likable person. And I feel like Ro is a decent human being. But I have a lot of problems with him as a politician. I gave him the nickname Ro Con Man for a reason. And I do believe if it came down to Ro's career in the progressive movement, Ro will choose his career almost every time. But he was good on Yemen. He's gone on a lot of foreign policy issues. Bad on a lot of other issues. And Jimmy kind of held his foot to the fire for a lot of that. Let me see if we can find some of his interview. Let me see if I can pull out some of that interview for you guys. Let's see if we can skip ahead to the pot where Jimmy actually talks about the CARES Act. There we go. 1 second. Yeah, we're gonna just pull it up, baby. We're gonna see if we can, because this interview was good. It was one of Jimmy's better interviews, but he always gives good interviews in a row. Definitely, Jimmy definitely tries to, he's nicer on some interviews to other people because I think that he knows that they can't handle it. But like Ro's shown a propensity to be able to handle tough ball interviews, or hardball interviews. So
that, but if you were to say to me, is that better policy? I would say yes.
Yeah, definitely that would be. So just how happy are you that I am the only one who will even attempt to hold your feet to the fire for the CARES Act vote? Aren't you just thrilled that I'm the only one, a pothead jagoff comedian in his garage is the only one who's going to ask you about this?
I'd say, Jimmy, I still believe in the First Amendment. I still believe that the press isn't supposed to be friends with politicians, that you're supposed to ask tough questions. I go on Fox News. I go on other places. And there was a conference called that leaked at the House Democrats. And I never leak, and I don't think people should be leaking. But it was all woe is me. And I said, look, being a United States congressman is like being in the 0.0000001% of privilege. You're in an extraordinary level of privilege. So if you're going to have tough questions from the press, or you're going to have someone say some not nice things about you, deal with it. Get over it. There's real people with real problems. So I think it's great. I mean, the people who were at my team were saying, why are you going on Jimmy Dore? I said, because he's a journalist. He asks tough questions. And if you can't answer it, then you should be in some other line of work.
Okay. I know, but you got to be happy at how bad the press is. Anyway, let's move on. How about our one final question? Here's my one final question for you, and thanks for coming on. But I have two questions before I get to my final one.
Yeah.
What leverage? So now going forward, it's just, Joe Biden is just stocking his cabinet with Republicans and people from the defense, from the military industrial complex, and now his new chief of staff is a lobbyist. So what leverage now can Bernie Sanders and the progressives who are elected? What leverage do you have to get anything done for people?
Well, we have leverage. I mean, look, we started with Yemen. I believe that Yemen, Vice President-elect Biden will stop that war, and you can have me on in 2 months or 3 months, and we'll see if I'm correct. But I'm pushing, and we disagree with Ron Klain. I mean, Ron Klain, I think, will actually help get us the Yemen war powers resolution through. If we get that through, if he stops the war in Yemen, that would be a huge contribution to humanity. Beyond that, though, I think, and I tweeted out today, I mean, the Republicans are saying they want to block Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren from being in the cabinet. First of all, that's absurd, because no one can question their qualifications. And in the past, the Senate has always said it's about qualifications, not about ideology, especially when it's fellow senators. But my view is we ought to be pushing to have confrontation, not just say, oh, well, McConnell says it can't be confirmed, so we're not going to do anything. We have to nominate them, force the fight. And I guess what progressives are going to do is we're going to continue to push our values and ask that we take the fight to the Senate, and we're going to continue to push as hard for that as possible. And you see, we're not backing down. I mean, progressives have been defending Black Lives Matter. We've been defending the progressive turnout, and we're not compromising on the agenda.
So there's going to be a lot of evictions coming up and a lot of foreclosures. And the last time we were in a similar economic...
So like I said, I will give Roe credit in this regard. He doesn't run away. And it's very easy to run away from independent media. It's very easy to run away from us. He does not run away. We'll give him that. But once again, I just don't. It's either you have delusions of grandeur about what the Democratic Party has been, or like you just haven't been paying attention, or you're being purposely dismissive of reality. Like there's only three solutions, because what Roe says sounds good in theory, but when we take into consideration what we know about the Democrats, none of it's true. Like and everything Jimmy said is 100% true. Y'all don't have any leverage. What leverage do y'all have? Biden, in his mind, is a president-elect, right? Okay. He did that while attacking Bernie, even though Bernie was campaigning for him. He did that by indirectly attacking even AOC while AOC was campaigning for him. He did that through attacking Medicare for All, one of the most popular policies in the country, while the people who supported Medicare for All and wrote the legislation supported Joe Biden anyway. He did that while lying about getting awards from Nelson Mandela, being a racist, being a segregationist, being a credibly accused sex pest. What exactly is the leverage here? I'm confused. There is no leverage. What's going to happen? What is going to happen with Ro Khanna if Joe Biden decides, I'm not signing a piece of this Yemen bill? I'm not signing shit, nothing. Then what happens? Nothing. Ro Khanna won't say we got to back our Democratic president. We can't. Let's put this in the tank and hold them accountable. Hold their feet to the fire for future. No, can't hold an 80-year-old man's feet to the fire when he's clearly going to be out in one term. There is no holding feet to the fire. Holding their feet to the fire was supposed to be done during the primary. Beth, thank you very much, Bethlehem. I appreciate the super chat. Niko, do you think Biden will push the second stimulus package through when he takes office? Funny enough, I was just tweeting about that. No, I don't at all. We'll get our vaccine even faster, but you're not getting a second stimulus package. Biden has reminded us time and time again, Bethlehem. He is the one who led the way for the aid packages that went to Wall Street, went to the automobile industry, the banks. And if you recall, the people who were left behind while Joe Biden was leading the way there were us. Everybody got theirs except for people who needed it. Houses and homes were taken under Biden's leadership on that particular issue. And unfortunately, the reality of the situation is Joe Biden hadn't said a damn thing about stimulus packages since he became the president-elect. Now has he? Nobody's noticed that. All of a sudden, it became about what? Once again, wear your masks. Or also, this is something that could give me my damn money. Do your job. What do we? I don't understand. We got enough for y'all paychecks, but we ain't got enough to give us a paycheck. Then how y'all getting paid then? If we ain't got the money. I gotta go on furlough, but Congress ain't gotta go on furlough. Joe Biden has not said a damn thing about stimulus checks. Gloria said, of course, the other effective vaccine is Moderna's. Oh, yeah, that was the other one who got the contract with Pfizer, right? It was Pfizer and Moderna, which Monja Slawi was on the board of and owned stocks in. 125,000 new COVID cases, 0.000000001 deaths. Yeah, I know. We don't need a vaccine. We need treatment for COVID. We don't need a vaccine. I'm aware. We have treatments too. What happened to BLM? What do you mean? Black people have been saved. Joe Biden has won. You didn't hear? And this is what I said was going to happen though, but you're correct. All of a sudden, all that BLM talk went out the window. When Antifa disappeared, I got some people that need to go ahead and give me a phone call, bro. I said, my problem with Antifa, there are people that I know that are actually anti-fascist. It's not the same thing as white boys running around in masks pretending to be Antifa. These are facts. The real Antifa, the same Antifa where the Black Panther fit or black like power fists originated from, they didn't wear masks, they didn't hide from accountability or responsibility or their, of their activism. And because of that, it was really hard for them to be infiltrated by cops who also decided to wear masks and dad hats. But the moment that you don't see Antifa there on Inauguration Day, you know what time it is. They weren't really anti-fascist. They were just anti-Trump. At least the ones who seem to be organized but supposedly aren't in an organization. But I'm willing to put money they don't show up to Joe Biden's inauguration. And if they don't, well, then you know what time it is. Right? You know what time it is. Voting machines should be scrapped. There's no reason for us to have. What we need is open chain or open source blockchain software that anybody can use from any computer and hand counted paper ballots. That should be it. You should be able to do both. Vote by mail and vote. You should be able to vote by mail, but also be able to vote on your computer so you can have accountability. I wouldn't say that there are no more BLM marches, by the way. I don't think that's the case. I'm telling you because Pasta and Fiorella and Johnny and them, they still go to marches out there. So I know that there's still marches happening. However, you won't see them get any coverage anymore. That's what's going to happen. Because they won't get coverage, they won't get protection, they won't get the resources, and they can be picked off easily, one by one, like we saw what happened with Ferguson. When activists can get picked off one by one, it makes less people want to activate because they see what's going on. People react to the fear of being arrested, beaten, and then having no one know about it. Next, Jacob Blake, etc. Jacob Blake, George Floyd, Tamir Rice, Breonna Taylor, like that's not going to get the attention that it should. It isn't. And I've been telling people about this. I've been saying like Standing Rock, Baltimore, Ferguson, like Antifa was nowhere to be found the entire Obama administration. Occupy. The moment Trump takes over, now Antifa shows up and now Proud Boys show up. Like, I wonder who set this up. Actually, so Dustin brings up a point saying it made people say, well, all lives matter, which became racist somehow. Well, because you don't have to, like, if your response is all lives matter to a person saying Black Lives Matter, then what's your intention on saying it? If somebody says Black Lives Matter, you should be like, I know, man, you're right. If a person told me White Lives Matter, I'd be like, yeah, I mean, of course, I feel like that's obvious. What are you gonna argue? Well, people say that people imply that all lives don't matter if you only say Black lives. No, that's not what we said actually at all. We didn't exclude any other lives whatsoever. So if your only intention, because nobody said all lives matter until people start saying Black Lives Matter, and if the only time you say all lives matter is in response to somebody else saying Black Lives Matter or to the idea of BLM, then it's because you're trying to delegitimize the main purpose of people reminding others that Black lives do indeed matter, despite history and policy and politicians and anti-Black movements trying to dictate otherwise. Antifa was nowhere to be found in the Obama and Bush years. Like I said, the real Antifa, and there are real anti-fascists out there. I always talk about my homegirl Erica. It's about as anti-fascist as you can get. Wears it on her sleeve. There are some people out there in the trenches who wear that shit, and they're real and they're about it. And they're out there. But like the organization in its current form, that's claiming to not be an organization but an idea, that should be a red flag because, well, one, y'all are really well organized for just a group put together by an idea. Like, that's one. Two, the original Antifa was an organization. It was an organization of well-trained militia, former military, and activists from all over the world that led the fight against fascism and was very public about it. Very, very public about it. And once again, I can guarantee there, even though I'm sure there was some attempts to infiltrate their movements, it wasn't by some cop walking down the street with a mask able to destroy buildings because everybody thinks it's Antifa. No. DC. I hear you. Occupy Wall Street and Standing Rock were during the Obama administration. Plenty of Antifa got tear gas. No, I was in Standing Rock. I was at Standing Rock. Antifa never showed up there. The Native American, indigenous community, the tribes from all over the world, and then or from all over the country. Excuse me. Well, actually, some from Central and South America also, but those people and the activists who came from all over the country, they came to help. And they were very, very much so. There was no, I mean, the only people committing violence there were police. The indigenous Americans were very, very stringent on the policy of, even if the police attack, you cannot respond to them because of the legal battles that were going on in court, and they didn't want to lose the optics there. So like, I remember there was no Antifa there. Voltron, Niko, did you see Michelle Malkin interview with Joe Altman concerning the many anti-Trump posts of Dr. Eric Coomer, co-owner of Dominion? I have not seen that. That's crazy though. That is a problem. Shoot me a link on Twitter if you can, or shoot me an email. And also Antifa, by the way, was definitely violent when they were created. Like the original Antifa was violent, and that was a good thing because they were literally fighting Mussolini. Like soldiers. Antifa was made up of soldiers. And that's not inherently a bad thing. If you're fighting fascism in all of its forms, not just fighting one political party, but if you're fighting genuine fascism in all of its forms, then being ready to fight is just a characteristic of being a revolutionary. That's part of the game, honestly. So I'm not even saying that violence is inherently bad and it's like never necessary. Like I get that. Sometimes it is. With Mussolini it was. With Hitler it was. But this Antifa that's supported by Joe Biden, I'm not, y'all can miss me with that. Just saying. I get it. I'm black, so like I just see things from a different perspective than most of my white counterparts. They're cool, they have their opinions on Antifa, and I get it. But like, I tend to remember those who were there. Who if you claim to be with me, I gotta know where you was at last time I needed you, homie. And when the black community needed that type of allyship in the past, especially with Ferguson, you're nowhere to be found. Joe Biden literally did support Antifa in the debate. Whereas Donald Trump took it as an opportunity to attack Antifa, which everyone kind of expected him to do. Joe Biden was like, first of all, Antifa is not an organization, it's an idea. And it shouldn't be controversial to be anti-fascist. And I'm going to tell you something about history and genuine leftist uprisings. Not a single time in history of the world, people, not a single goddamn time, has any true insurgency movement ever been supported by a mainstream politician, let alone by the president-elect, let alone by someone who introduced possibly the most fascist piece, two of the most fascist piece of legislation, or at least fascist policies in the history of this country, which is Patriot Act, which he authored, and then the 94 Crime Bill, which he architected. No. If he supports Antifa, the idea, that's because in this country at least, It is not an idea that has been working on behalf of all people at all times against all parties, all corrupt players in this country. It's because he knows once he takes over, Antifa for some reason is not going to be around anymore. Did you see the video where people were trying to cover up photos of victims with elect Biden and anti-Trump posters in BLM Plaza? Hold on, what? I'm confused. I thought, are you trying to say that the victims were being covered up with Biden? Oh, yes. With the, I retweeted that video. You talking about with the black woman who was saying like, I don't know why y'all want to have, like, why y'all are celebrating, because like literally in the BLM Plaza, like they were covering up the victims' names and faces with the posters of Biden and Harris, and yeah, it's what I expected. it's what, that's all I gotta say about that. It's what I expected. Glory saying the problem with labeling every left movement as Antifa is it feeds into the fear porn that makes everyone want to beef up the security state, and it's the same with labeling everything on the right the Proud Boys. I 100% agree. Everybody just needs to stop throwing that Nazi word around like they actually know what Nazism is. Speaking of which, Biden literally tried to arm Nazis, so there's that. That's why it's important to recognize the difference between dumbass people and Nazis. Clever Cat, I'm not gonna lie, I did want Bernie in 16, but not in 2020. Definitely wanted Tulsi to be president in 2020 because I at least have confidence that she'll fight. Like, I have confidence in her ability to pick a good, competent, and trustworthy cabinet, which I did not have in Bernie by 2020. Like, but the DNC definitely cheated Bernie. And it really kind of gives you, when we're seeing what we're seeing the Dominion machines and even the ES&S machines, but especially Dominion machines that are put in place right after Bernie was to find a lot of success in 2016 and then Trump subsequently beat Hillary. Like, those machines now, you should be having questions. Where else were those machines used? And we know they were used in at least 28 other states. Did those machines have a huge effect not only on Bernie's victory or lack thereof, but on other candidates like Yang and Tulsi and others? Were their votes taken away from them? You know, that's something that needs to be considered. And anyone who is not considering that is silly. It's funny that you mentioned Modi, Choctaw Warrior, because all of a sudden nobody brings up Modi anymore. All of a sudden it's not important because of what we said it was. They didn't care. Well, either way, if you like them or you dislike them, they didn't care about any of that stuff. They cared about it because Tulsi was Hindu and Modi is Hindu and was the president of India, or is the president of India. So they could use anything they wanted against him. Even though the original attacks on Modi were actually from evangelical right-wing Republicans. And nobody knew. It's going to be interesting. Our relationship with India is going to break down. We're about to have a lot of relationships break down, bro. All right, let me get up off of here, y'all. Let me get up off of here. In about 2 hours, about an hour and 40 minutes. We got some other stuff to do later this afternoon, so I definitely want to be around for that. I'm about to go get me some lunch. I appreciate everybody who asked all these amazing questions today. Y'all had some doozies today. I'm sure we'll have even more next week. All right, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. Of course, you can. If you're watching from your television screen, you can become a Rockfin Premium member by clicking on by scanning the QR code or going to the links in the description below. You can also support the show through Patreon, Rockfin Premium, or Cash App. All right. Or you can click on the link in the description below if you don't have the QR code ability or capability. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream. Mimosa Monday, AMA segment of Mikasa Tsukasa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance.